Hello, I'm Willie Bragg. Welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. This is the what we call the KRTD Media Saturday night feature, where the Willie Bragg Show is in partnership with the Kerberos News Group, where I discuss political issues or play various news features, and I comment sort of like what I do throughout the week, but I do it in partnership with KRTD Media, like I'm doing right now as we speak. Before we get started, so I want each and every one of you to go ahead and hit that like button in whatever platform you're at. Hit that like button because it helps with the algorithms. Subscribe. If you're on YouTube, subscribe and hit the notification bell on whichever YouTube you're watching, whether it's on my YouTube show or KRTD Media's YouTube channel, and do the same thing on all the other platforms on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. All the platforms that my program and KRTD's platform. All the platforms that my show and KRTD's show would be on. Follow, subscribe, do what you need to do. And KRTD has what we call super chats now. So I will try to maybe every 15 minutes to gently remind everybody that we have super chats to let you know that we have that now. And so anyway, tonight we're going to discuss Rage Against War Machine, basically 1 week after, because last Sunday, I, myself, Shane Coughlin, and Dr. Sherry Weiss were in attendance at the Rage Against War Machine event in Washington, D.C. And we were there and saw all the people that were speaking at the event. And we talked to some of the people at the event, some of the speakers. We talked to some of the people that attended the event, and so that's what we did. And so right now I have two guests right with me this evening, two veteran anti-war activists that would add very good insight to this discussion, and that's Dr. Catherine Ann McCloskey and Margot Schulter. And I will let these two ladies introduce themselves. So, which one of y'all want to introduce yourselves first?
Why don't you go first, Margot?
Okay, I guess I'm sort of a very modest peace activist. I remember in 1983. There was a women's peace camp in San Francisco, which I took part in. There were some women there who were really dedicated peace activists, and they were from Greenham Common in England, and they were protesting the cruise missiles in England. And you may remember there was the Intermediate Forces Treaty in the late 1980s, which cut the intermediate range forces to zero in Europe. And unfortunately, the USA has been at the forefront of a campaign to undo that progress that humankind made towards moving away from the brink of nuclear war. But I've been involved over the years, but in modest ways. And I've met many, many, many dedicated activists who have really taken risks and have really done impressive things in this campaign to make the world safe for humanity.
Okay. Catherine Ann McCloskey, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm back. No cracks. I became active in the socialist movement, believe it or not, when I was 10 years old. My mother asked me to sit and watch the first edition of The Firing Line with William Buckley, and his first guest was Norman Thomas. And by the end of the hour, I figured I was whatever Mr. Thomas was. And so I actually joined the Young People's Socialist League when I was 16, which was in 1972, proving that she's smarter than I am. That's about the time Margot resigned from the IPSL. And I've been active in socialist and peace movement ever since. I worked for 9 years for the United Automobile Workers Union as an organizer, until a car wreck kind of ended that. And again, Margot and I ended up interacting, even though we didn't even know of the other's existence. I was at the 1982 Million Person March in New York City, and Margot was at the march in San Francisco. So, yeah, long time.
And well, 1982, I was barely politically aware at the time. I was like 12, turning 13 years old. But
you're forgiven.
Yeah, but I would, I would find myself at home in the same socialist circles, ideologically, you both found yourselves in over the years. So there you have it. So, all right. Yes. Yeah, as I said, we had this march last week. It had a lot of controversy. I became aware of the march, I guess, in early January it was, where the march came to my attention. And so I figured, yeah, I live about 5 hours away. So, I was going to go ahead. I said, yeah, I could drive up there. Of course, I took a train because I had some car trouble. But the point is that I decided, I'm going to go up there. I'll have a lot of. I'm decided I just need to get back active again because I went through a long time period where I was burned out myself. So I just want to do what I can, and I tell you, just seeing the diversity of people at this march was really impressive. That it would put any naysayer that was there that were kind of that was kind of putting a poop on this march from a public relations perspective, saying, oh, this march is just a horseshoe theory, red brown alliance, or what have you. I mean, there were some unsavory people there that I would never associate politically with, but at the same time, it was not. I did not come back from that march, as some kind of Proud Boy nutcase or anything like that. So, or some kind of Mises Caucus anarcho-capitalist style, person that some people claim was going to happen. So, I'm still the same old nut that I was prior.
That's absurd.
Yeah,
because you listen to somebody speak that. Look, I have had people speaking when it was over. I thought, yeah, I pretty much agree with that person. Heard David McReynolds speak in 1980 when he was running for president, and I thought, I like this guy. And but to say that if you have somebody come out of left field and give like some of the speeches we heard, and they're going to convince you, no, I don't think so.
Well, what's kind of sad is that there is this misnomer that this is another sample, and there's a degree of truth that this is another example of infighting on the left. Narcissism of small differences or big differences for that matter, where somebody's got to find something to sit there and say, well, we can't do this because of this and this and that. And then the left finds itself in a situation where they can't get anything done. And it makes the left look intolerant and incompetent. But here's the thing. There were people on the right that probably were doing the same thing. Make no mistake. They were probably saying, what, you're going to go there with a bunch of communists and a bunch of crazy leftists? I mean, and so, I know that went on in right-wing circles too. So, it happens on both sides. This sort of mindset. It's not just reserved for one side. And for those that made it on both sides, and hey, we're here to stop World War III. That's how you have to look at it.
Yeah, and I think in the future, if you're going to have those kind of marches, you have to tell the speakers, stick to the issues, exercise message discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, definitely. And I do know what you're talking about. Yes. Yes. And I totally agree with that. Because, you can't do, you don't want to divide people and all of that. Because I mean, I wouldn't go up there on stage if I was a speaker. Not that I would, but if I was a speaker, I'm not going to go up there and say, "Hey, let's stop this war and let's fight for Medicare for all." The libertarians will tell me, and I can't use any curse words because KRTD is monetized. They'll tell me to go somewhere and tell me what I can do and stick it where the sun don't shine. So I'm not going to go make a speech about why we need Medicare for all to a portion of the crowd that would hate me for saying that. So have to stick with the issues where we all agree, and that is anti-war, putting a stop to the nuclear chess game that's going on between the United States and Russia, or in the Far East, the United States and China. Got to put a stop to the encroachment on civil liberties that's been really on steroids since 9/11. And each presidential administration finds a new way to clamp down on civil liberties even further. And one area where everybody is agreement at that rally, freeing Julian Assange. So those sort of things, that's what we need to focus on. And sometimes people do bring their pet issues too, and it can get a little crazy.
I definitely agree with putting emphasis on freeing Assange. He's charged under the same act that sent Eugene Victor Debs to prison, the Espionage Act. This is even more outrageous. How you charge a foreign national who's never worked in the United States, never had his business in the United States, he simply published things that he got. You could charge any editor of any publication in the world and have them brought to the United States for a kangaroo court.
And for people who, for whatever reason, they're like, well, what he did was dangerous. Well, if Assange is put 175 years in prison under the Espionage Act, just like John Bolton wants him to be, that's the end of the First Amendment. Not only, I mean, if First Amendment is pretty much eroding, that it would definitely, without question, just be on paper and nothing more. It would just be just symbolic on the Constitution. It'll be meaningless at this point, and that ought to scare the heck out of every. I can say hell. That could scare the hell out. That should scare the hell out of everyone.
Yeah, I certainly didn't suffer the way Julian Assange has suffered, but back when Barack Obama was president, the FBI came through my front door and held my partner and I at gunpoint for 3 hours. And a friend of mine said the other day, well, the last time you criticized a Democratic president during the midst of a war, the FBI visited you. Do you want them to come back? I figure they're going to do what they're going to do. I had no part in what they were investigating.
Well, that was the beautiful thing about this event. You had people that hated each other that put aside their differences. So just libertarians, liberals, and Leninists were kumbaya. January 6th insurrectionists, Jehovah's Witnesses, kumbaya. It was anti-vaxxers and anarchists, anarcho-communists, kumbaya. It was just social conservatives and social democrats, kumbaya, Greens and just everything under the sun. Tea Party people, Trotskyists, and what have you. I mean, just and tankies, kumbaya.
That's fine. I'm not. Go ahead, Margaret. Give us your line.
Well, what I'd say is I'd sort of agreeing to disagree. I'd say let's agree to oppose World War III so that we can disagree on the points of a viable planet, how to govern a viable planet. In the absence of nuclear war and the absence of a climate crisis out of control, we can have interesting debates.
Yeah, your third camp line.
Oh, neither Yankee nor tanky.
Yes,
Oh,
I love that.
oh. Well, it's funny. I actually had a guest the other day who was called the Yankee Tanky.
Oh,
Uh,
Rush.
yeah, yeah. From Catherine's home state. Interesting
Mhm.
guest, though. But yeah, the third camp. I remember reading about that in when joining the Socialist Party. And so a lot of people malign me as taking a pro Moscow, pro Kremlin, pro Russia, and pro Putin line. And just this is nothing new under the sun. Prior to this invasion, and just people red baited me, told me that I'm a Stalinist and I'm communist because hey, I think that we have to be like Norway, Sweden, or something like that. Which now I'm gotten further to the left. I'm looking at Tito's former Yugoslavia as kind of a good model too to follow. So
Last night I may have lost a good friend. You both have met him. I'll say his first name, David. He really raked me over the coals because, well, Scott Ritter was interviewed by RT, and is there a point there? Because I don't see one. Yeah, that was a Putin apologist rally. No, it really wasn't. I mean, I'd rather, if in the grand scheme of things, I have to be on the same side as somebody, I'd rather be on the same side as Vladimir Putin than Wall Street or the Pentagon or the White House.
Nazis in the Ukraine.
I was just getting to them. They shot at my father. I take it personally. I do not like Nazis. I will never be down with Nazis. That's never, ever, ever going to happen.
Yeah, it's not an option right there. It's not an option at all. Just the whole idea. I mean, it's like in America, in America, a lot of the shit lists was like always cute when certain ultra left wing young kids go and punch a Nazi, but now it's okay to fund them in Ukraine. And usually punching a Nazi several years ago meant just attacking somebody who was slightly center right in a lot of cases. And some of them were actual jerks and were the real thing here. But I'm just saying, but it was getting to a point where some people a couple of years ago were just slightly just an obnoxious, loud Trump supporter getting smacked beside the head. I'm like, you don't smack somebody beside the head because they voted for Trump.
I try to be a pacifist. I really do. But the guy who smacked Richard Spencer didn't leave his house for 6 months. He's afraid to speak in front of crowds to this day. Oh God, I don't want to be glad about that, but I am. I have to admit it.
I saw that black eye of his when he was on the David Pakman show shortly thereafter, and it was he got a zinger. He got a zinger.
Oh, he sure did.
Yeah, that was one hell of a punch he got and everything. I personally will say that I would personally say being evil in your heart is not a reason for somebody to punch somebody beside the head. Now, is that somebody who's evil in their heart and they're inflicting that harm on somebody? Yeah, then but keep in mind, Cornel West was saved by Antifa at that rally in Charlottesville. Antifa saved people's lives at that rally in Charlottesville. So why people want to sit there and vilify Antifa actually have saved people's lives.
If there had been good peace marshals, more people would have died than Heather Heyer.
Yeah, and there's no one size fit all tactic with groups like Antifa. So I just wonder where they stand on this conflict. I'm sure they're conflicted between supporting Ukraine and supporting Russia. I would imagine.
It's probably something that doesn't even come up.
Yeah, because I'm sure something like I know I'm a controversial one. I know there's actually a pro-Israel faction of Antifa. And I saw that one time in Germany, not here, but not that I was in Germany. I saw that an Antifa march with them marching with a pro-Israel banner, and I was just like, oh, okay, interesting. They must really be old school.
I fancy myself to be an Antifa activist. I'm certainly anti-fascist. If there's an anti-fascist rally anywhere in 100 miles, I'm there.
People are anti-fascist. I would say the majority of people are anti-fascist and they don't realize it.
I'm afraid, Willie, that so many people are down with the Ukraine because they've been brainwashed. They're down with the Nazis.
Well, they dismiss it. They don't believe it. I mean, they're people that writes it off completely. I mean, there are people that like totally writes it off, like it doesn't exist. It doesn't. It's made up. People actually think it's made up. It's propaganda, and it's not.
Yeah, sure. And someone has a portrait of Adolf Hitler tattooed on one arm and one of Stefan Bandera on the other, and swastikas tattooed all over their body, and SS and lightning strokes. That person's a Nazi. They're not an old school Nazi. They're not a proto-Nazi. They're regular old fashioned Nazi.
Exactly. And then we got a country that called Ukraine that will ban 13 political parties, but will allow a right-wing website in the Ukraine calling for the murder of political opponents abroad. The nefarious to kill list.
Another person who you and I know, Willie, we had at it in chat one night. The guy's a minister, and he actually said it's a good thing that they're closing down the Russian Orthodox Church in the Ukraine.
Well, I don't. You don't close down. You don't close down opponents or anything like that. No. Just
all the TV stations, all the radio stations are owned by the government.
Yeah.
They have a law that means 75% of Ukrainians can't form a union. They can't bargain collectively. It's against the law.
Ukraine is more right-wing than Russia.
Far more right-wing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the sun shines out of Putin's trousers, but he is elected. And
and some people will hear this and be like, "Oh, this is a pro-Putin circle jerk," and it isn't. I mean, I have my issues. I would not vote. I would not vote for Putin if I lived in Russia. It would not be.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah. I would probably vote if I lived in Russia. I probably would vote for Mikhail Gorbachev's old party if they're still in existence, the Social Democrats that came in. That's probably who I will vote for, or. That would be my orientation, which is whatever country around the world. But the point I'm trying to make is that people said this is kind of a repeat of 20 years ago when people said that oh, you oppose the Iraq War. I suppose you must love Saddam Hussein. Remember that when people used to say that 20 years ago?
I remember that, and I remember going back further. Oh, you love Ho Chi Minh. Do you know what a butcher he is? I don't love Ho Chi Minh. I don't want to see, 6 million Indo-Chinese die and 60,000 Americans with them? I'm opposed to that. That doesn't mean I think that the sun comes out of Ho Chi Minh's trousers either.
But here's the thing about Ho Chi. I mean, well, I don't think he was alive when this happened, but Vietnam did a wonderful thing when they ousted out the Khmer Rouge.
Mm-hmm.
And
1978.
Yeah, and that was and what did the United States do? They supported. They didn't directly support the Khmer Rouge, and I can't think of the name of the ousted prince from Cambodia at the time who formed an alliance with Pol Pot. Prince
Prince Sihanouk was a neutralist. Yes.
United States backed him, who was tight with the Khmer Rouge because their common enemy was Vietnam. The Soviet Union backed Vietnam, and China backed the Khmer Rouge. And the United States, because they were kind of good with China at the time, or starting to be good with China at the time, but over Vietnam, and were still hostile toward the Soviets, they went with the very worst example of the kind of ideology that Reagan hated the most. So it's just really crazy. It's just really crazy when you think about it, and it's just absolutely nuts and all of that. But anyway, as I said, this March was I mean, I came back feeling kind of I feel great for this march because I hope to see more of it happening. And I know there's another anti-war march on the 18th, and it's more suitable to my liking because it's ideologically further left. I mean, I'm a tribalist at the end of the day, and so but I won't be able to make it because of my work schedule and I and all of that. But I will be there in spirit and all. But Catherine, you know a little more about that march than I do, so can you tell us about that?
I only know a little more because I talked with some of the march organizers this afternoon. They're organizing bus trips from various places to the marches, and I'm deliberately making that plural because there will be another one in San Francisco. And they were quite willing to accept the Socialist Party of America as a coalition member. So I'm real happy about that.
Absolutely. So let me go ahead and make a quick reminder about the super chats, because I said I'm going to keep making a very quick reminder. Everyone watching through KRTD Media, we have now super chats available. So if you can find it in your hearts to donate what you can, just please do so, and I will thank you in advance, and I will continue. A little quick blurb right there. So and I want to see more of it. I like what Garland Nixon said, because prior to this march, with all the a divided left with their opinions, yay and nay on this march, some of the people who are getting very critical saying, well, I don't like them because you got this group and you got that group and you got this group over here. And he was like, okay, well then, if that's the case, form your own little march, form your own little group, and do your own little setup. I have no problem with that.
Well, we are doing our own little setup. It's called International Women's Day. It just happens that somebody named Margot Schulter is going to be our keynote speaker, because I don't know anybody who knows more about how International Women's Day came to be and how it turned into how the peace movement turned into International Women's Day back in 1917.
Oh.
Margot?
Yes, that's right. We're talking about the Russian Revolution of February 1917, February according to the old Julian calendar that was then in effect in Russia. Because in February 23rd, which was Women's Day, there was a demonstration there for peace, bread, and land. Because there was, and of course, at that point, Russia was involved in the First World War with disastrous consequences, and the women were demanding peace, and it became a general movement. And then by I believe it was February 27th, the old style was March 12th, new style. The breakthrough came when the Tsar's troops refused to fire on the crowds. And this was a day, I think on the 26th or on the 11th of March in the new style calendar, the Gregorian calendar, they fired on the crowds, but once they did it, they couldn't repeat the experience. So the next day, the troops refused to obey the Tsar. And that was the end of the Tsar's regime. And of course, at that point, Kerensky and the provisional government came in. But the International Women's Day, in a sense, brought down Tsarism in Russia in 1917.
Yeah, and
okay.
Women's groups formed an opposition to World War I.
Right. For example, Rosa Luxemburg was imprisoned in Germany for opposing World War I there.
And of course,
it's very interesting, while she was in prison, because of her war resistance. She wrote a critique of Lenin's government in Russia. And it's so interesting to think of what critique that she might write of Putin. And we're not. I want to agree with my colleague. I want to agree with Dr. Catherine that we're not saying that Putin is perfect, but we're just saying I think the United States is very cynically using Ukraine in a bid for world domination. And I think that Ukraine itself has a grassroots nonviolent movement which would not be Banderist or Nazi. And I think the tragedy is that if you had nonviolent activism dominant there, it would not endanger the world peace and probably mean a better Europe. But instead, we have this manipulating, I think, the use of the Euromaidan movement to promote a Cold War. And I think it was very much in the late 90s. It was the Wolfowitz doctrine, the United States is going to dominate the world and it's not going to permit any rival to arise, including the Russian Federation. And it's really conspiracy to wage aggressive war. And I think it's a violation of the Nuremberg Doctrine.
We now have Americans targeting the bombs that the Ukrainians are launching. That's an act of war. They blew up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. That's an act of war.
It is, and I guess I can talk about it since Seymour Hersh has mentioned it, and they're talking about it all over. I have kind of somewhat censored myself on the Nord Stream pipeline issue, thinking that the algorithm gods of YouTube would probably pull me down for spreading conspiracy theories or what have you. But I feel a little bit safer to talk about it now. And I do believe that the Russia did not do that. I believe it was the U.S. that did that and everything. Now, getting quick aside, Rosa Luxemburg. I share the same birthday with Rosa Luxemburg.
Good for you.
Yeah, I'm just a little younger. I'm just a little younger than she is, or was.
Yeah, but she never got to be as old as you are now.
That's true. That is true. Yep. But apparently some people would tell me that my ideology murdered Rosa Luxemburg. That's just the craziest thing. That's just the craziest thing, as if everybody who's some kind of semblance of a social democrat all think the same.
But, or that every social democrat is responsible for that portion of the German Social Democratic Party that sided with the right wing to crush the Spartakabund revolt.
Yeah, so
it wasn't the entire party; it was some of the functionaries in the party that sided with the Free Corps.
Yeah, as I said, there's to the whole guilt by association and all of that. Sort of like again, I'm bringing the Khmer Rouge, for example, to say that Khmer Rouge is like all the rest of communism would be a total lie, because you got the Soviets that supported Vietnam and then the ouster of Pol Pot. I mean, they were like, no, they don't want that. They don't want that kind of government in charge. Not at all. So, and the people of Cambodia were done a huge favor by Vietnam. Vietnam were liberators in Cambodia.
Yeah, the killing fields might have gone on for another several years. Right. Still don't feel good about Vietnam invading Cambodia, but like you said, that probably saved millions of lives.
Exactly.
You don't feel good about the Russians invading the Donbass, but it probably saved thousands of lives.
But nobody really cares about the Russians in the West. The Russians who are persecuted in the Ukraine, or they'll say it's not happening or something like that. And again, I don't want to see anybody on any side in this conflict suffer at all.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people who say the Ukrainians have dug their graves, now they need to lie in them.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly the position of some of the people who say they're supporting Ukraine. Really, you're supporting them by fighting to the last Ukrainian? Supporters like you, they don't need enemies.
Yes.
And it's just insanity how they want the West wants to trigger Article 5 of NATO. It's like they keep re-examining, looking at Article 5 and saying almost daily. It's like anything they can to say, well, this is a violation of Article 5. Even an accidental rocket going into what was it, Poland, by the Ukraine, and it was obviously accidental.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, it wouldn't happen if the Russia didn't go into the Ukraine and all of that. I mean, I just kind of like they're looking for a reason. They're looking for a reason to go into this conflict, and I was not more angry than to see Finland and Sweden join NATO last year.
Disappointment. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember when I was in the SPUSA, then in the party platform, it talks about abolition of NATO.
NATO has got to go so the people can live in peace. A line from a song by Benjamin Grosscup. I suggest everybody look it up. It's a great song. NATO's got to go.
Right, and I think that I'm sort of like one of you who said that I would vote for the Gorbachev's party if I were in Russia, and I have Russian ancestors. Interestingly, my grandparents came from Minsk, and I know I would I think this country needs some perestroika and glasnost. That's what desperately is needed. Instead, we're being given a second Cold War, and that's what we don't need. Well, and I think the idea of a common house of Europe. See, it's a real tragedy because Ukraine, it's a very delicate cultural and political situation. I think the United States wanted to exploit it to have military conflict. That's ignoble.
Yeah.
I bent a couple of my friends' ears saying that if Joe Biden was elected president, it would be one military conflict after another. I don't feel good about being right. I wish I were wrong, but I wasn't.
Well, there's a little bit of a misnomer that, and I understand why some people say that this wouldn't have happened under Trump, but Trump actually contributed to this happening too, because the one thing that Ronald Reagan did that was good, he and Gorbachev went to the negotiating table and they went with those treaties that basically eliminated those nuclear weapons. Well, they didn't eliminate them, but they stopped aiming them at each other, basically. And to prove that he was not a stooge of Russia, Trump basically ended the one good thing Reagan did while he was president. Mm-hmm. The one good thing Reagan did. I mean, Reagan was what Reagan. If George W. Bush never had existed, Ronald Reagan would still be the worst president we ever had. But Reagan did one good thing, and Donald Trump, of all people, removed the one good thing Reagan did.
I didn't vote for either rapist.
Oh, okay.
They're both credibly accused of sexual molestation, at least, if not attempted rape. I'm enough of a feminist that neither one of them is ever going to be my candidate.
Yeah. Well, I haven't voted for a major party candidate since 1992, and I'm sorry for I wouldn't have voted for the other guy in that election either. So
that's my situation.
Yeah. I voted for Bill Clinton in 1993, and I regretted it. If I could take back that vote, I would. I would right now. Not that I like George W. Herbert Walker Bush. He was horrible too. I would have voted third party. I would have rather vote for H. Ross Perot.
Yeah.
Than
a hand grenade with a bad haircut.
Yeah. Yeah. But but as I said, I mean, at the best case scenario, which is worst case scenario is World War III, which is going to lead to the elimination of human civilization as we know it.
And may end life as we know it in the universe.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It will be a dead planet because of this worst case scenario. a best case scenario, which is not a good case scenario, but we probably, if we don't end up nuking each other and we end up just rattle sabling between the United States and Russia and between the United States and China. There was World War I and World War II. Well, we had a first Cold War. Maybe we have a Cold War II.
What I'm afraid we might have is the third Red Scare.
I think we're going to probably have a Red Scare again too. Yeah,
because the Lavender Scare always precedes the Red Scare.
The writing is on the wall, because even here in America, there's no quote unquote left wing party. There's no viable socialist or labor party. There's no viable communist party. There's no viable whatever that gets elected.
There's 50 of them.
Huh?
What do you mean there's no third party? There's 50 of them.
Well, I meant they are, but they're all relevant. But the point I'm trying to make is that whatever we may think of Bernie Sanders in the year 2023, what he did, the one thing he did, he basically alerted a lot of people into the shenanigans of capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
And so he basically convinced people that capitalism isn't working for us. And I knew that. You both knew that longer than I have. But I knew that before a lot of folks started knowing it. Back in the 1990s, I realized that. Maybe in the 80s, I realized it, but definitely in the 1990s. And I think that makes people uncomfortable. The powers in this country uncomfortable. I mean, they're okay. They're okay with social issues. They're okay with the social issues, and I'm not sitting there maligning them. They're okay with same-sex marriage. I celebrated when that decision came in the Supreme Court. They're okay with calling out BS on police brutality. That's definitely a dub position. Things of that nature, tolerance, all that. But when it comes to questioning corporate power, that's something people do not like. And this is why we have these culture wars to kind of divide Americans. They really do not want Americans realizing that they've been screwed by both parties.
Yeah. The two wings of the war party.
Yep. And this war and this crisis in the Ukraine, Russia is just another way to do that. So we have crumbling infrastructure. We don't have a healthcare system. I mean, how dare we give our tax money to a country that already has universal healthcare? We need that healthcare here.
Yeah, but don't you see that as a progressive move? Medicare for all Nazis?
Yeah,
paid for by Americans who don't have Medicare for all?
Well, that's true. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. I mean,
the Nazis in Ukraine, the government will pick up 100% of your medical bill.
Well, we paid for Medicare. We paid for Medicare for all for people in the Ukraine with our tax dollars. For the past 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, we pay for Medicare for all in various countries in form of foreign aid, which I'm good with everybody, even bad people having Medicare for all. But it'd be kind of nice if we could have some of that here in this country.
Oh, they can't do that, Willie. They need the money. Where are you going to get the $835 billion that is going to be spent on defense?
Okay.
And the $150 billion that's going to be given to Ukraine. That has to come out of somebody's backside. And they've decided it's going to be the working class.
I normally do the comments at the end, but I need to answer somebody real quick here.
Yes.
Big Silver Orb said Ukrainians are not Nazis, full stop. we never said that Ukraine is a Nazi state. We said that there are Nazis in the military. It's called the Azov Battalion, and there are Nazis in society. We never said that there was a Fourth Reich in the Ukraine. Just want to have that understood. But there's enough of a Nazi influence in the Ukraine that is problematic. I just needed to have that addressed to that person there.
Only 20% of Germans ever had anything to do with the National Socialist Democratic Workers' Party in Germany. Only 20%, but it was still fair to call it Nazi Germany because the Nazis were running the place. The Azov Battalion has threatened Zelensky on numerous occasions that if he doesn't do exactly as they tell him, they're going to drag him out in Maidan Square and execute him.
Yep. Yeah. So, and they will. They will. I mean, he's probably scared. He's kind of like the president of Pakistan during the aftermath of 9/11. What was the name of that president of Pakistan? Sharif.
Yeah.
You could tell. I mean, whatever we may have thought of him at the time, you could tell he was between a rock and a hard place. He had the United States on his back, and he had the Taliban on his back too, and so he was kind of squeezed by both ends, and I think that maybe Zelensky might be in that situation as well, but
Zelensky owns 14 palatial properties in 9 different countries. He can go there and live high on the hog. He and his great grandchildren.
Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, he and his wife, his wife basically bullying the Web Summit in Portugal last year to ban the gray zone from attending. You heard about that, right? Yeah. So
I had my problems with the gray zone, but I don't understand banning any press.
Yeah, same here. And another thing is that, another thing about that is that, along with the 13 political parties and banning the Russian Orthodox Church and all of that, I mean, you have a government that allows a right-wing kill list website to exist while banning parties and banning churches, and then demanding for the U.S. government to put certain politicians and certain journalists on a watch list in the United States. Rand Paul, I have problems with Senator Rand Paul on economics. We all do. He's kind of okay on some civil liberties issues. He's pretty good on foreign policy. And he's called pro-Russia. I don't think he's pro-Russia, but he's called that.
How dare he suggest that there ought to be an auditor general to look to see where the money we give to Ukraine goes.
Right.
70% of the weapons, according to CBS News, they never retracted the story. They just took it down, are disappearing.
Absolutely. Yep.
The maniac that attacked the Tops market in Buffalo, which is only about 120 miles up the road from the one I'm looking out on now, we're going to have people doing that kind of thing with Stinger missiles and tow missiles.
The shopping center, the kid that blew that shot up the African Americans in that store last year. I mean, he wore that emblem it was like a black sun symbol that with the like Nazi thing on it.
Yeah, it was the black sun. The Azov Battalion changed it to the white sun, and yes, that's exactly what he had on his flak jacket, both front and back. Same with the shooter in Christchurch that shot up the mosques, wore the same emblem. I'd be scared to death if this war stops and the Nazis can just bring in people and train them to go off and commit stochastic terrorist acts.
Yeah. and and we're having this conversation here, and I know somebody on the chat line think that we're pro-Russia saying this, and I'm just going to say this to the one individual with due respect who thinks that this is a pro-Russia fest, is that I support Pussy Riot in Russia. So anybody who thinks that I am like pro Putin, pro Russia, and just wanting them to win at all costs and all that. Again, I support Pussy Riot. So just connect the dots with that. So, and let me interrupt with the chat lines again. KRTD, Converse News Group, with the chat super chats. So if you can, donate if you can, whatever you feel like you can donate to help the network pay its bills and all that, much would be appreciated. Thank you. And so we'll continue. In a few moments I will play a little bit from the march from last week. So I just remembered, 20 years ago, we were going to, I know I was going to protest every other weekend, just about. And around the time Obama was sworn in, it stopped. You notice that? It
stopped dead. The large donors, the Soroses and the like, stopped giving to anti-war organizations, and they went belly up. Remember United for Peace and Justice?
Sure do.
They had an office, a staff, organizers, et cetera, literature. That all stopped within a couple of weeks of the inauguration.
It's like somebody just turned off the light in a room, like the light switch.
I just noticed something in the chat. Our comrade, Jason Hopp, tried to link the list of Zelensky's properties, but the URL is too long. So anybody who wants to see that, I will take it on myself to get it posted somewhere where you can find it.
I could probably, if I can, when I do my editing, if I can think about it, I might put it in the description box below.
Okay.
Because I usually do that when I'm done with the videos. I usually do that onto my description box. But having all that said, yeah, we got a lot of work to do in convincing. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna make a prediction. With all the naysayers right now, all the naysayers against us with this being critical of us, being critical of America and NATO rattlesnakling, if we're not nuked in the next 2 years, I think that some of these folks, when the protest gets larger, because I think we're gonna see an anti-war movement build up. I think we're going to see an anti-war movement in the next 2 or 3 years, and I think that you'll start to see a liberal progressive presence in that wasn't there previously. They're not there currently right now. You'll start to see them stream in. That is my prediction. You might not see a lot, but you'll start to see some that will be noticeable. What do you think?
Well, there was an anti-war movement when Jimmy Carter was president, a profound anti-nuclear anti-war movement. Now, of course, 3 Mile Island had just nearly melted down. And that scared a lot of people.
Yeah, that did. I remember that when I was a kid when it happened. I was let me see, what was it, 1979 that happened?
79 was 3 Mile Island, yes.
Yeah, I was 10 years old when that happened. That made it on the news and all of that. That was a big headlines back then. So
yeah, there was a guy from the nuclear power producers, the Pennsylvania Nuclear Power Producers Coalition, on a local talk radio station. And I, of course, called in and said to the guy, we're paying for things that only work 2/3 of the time. If I had a car and it only turned over twice out of every 3 times, I would get another car. But that's the way the nuclear power industry functions. And we were arguing about safety and things like that. And the host, quite correctly, went to another caller. The next day, 3 Mile Island nearly melted down, and all of a sudden I was a sage. No, I was just the right person at the right time. But I ended up being on radio shows trying to explain to people this technology is dangerous. The only good thing I can say about nuclear power is protesting is the way I met Howie Hawkins.
Oh yeah, I'm not sorry I voted for Howie Hawkins in 2020. Although people try to shame me into voting for Joe Biden, and I almost fell for it. I confess, I almost fell for it because I didn't want to go through the agony and the anguish and the browbeating that I went through in 2016 for voting for Jill Stein. But I'm not sorry I voted for Jill Stein. I'd do it again and again and again and again. Same thing with Howie Hawkins. Because honestly, criticizing Republicans, that's low-hanging fruit, as far as I'm concerned. We all know the Republicans are not going to do anything for us. But when it comes to the Democrats, they're supposed to kind of do things for us, and they're not even putting any effort. And to criticize them makes it look like we're being pro-Republican. We're not. Quote Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore said, I don't criticize Democrats because I support Republicans. I criticize Democrats because they support Republicans. And that pretty much describes my attitude toward the Democratic Party.
I was part of a group that stretched across different socialist organizations. We truly thought we could remake the Democratic Party from inside and turn it into a de facto social democratic party. Now, that was pretty nuts. And it didn't work. And the Democratic Party is far more regressive than it was in the 1970s. And I'm just not willing to spend the rest of my life working on something that hasn't worked in the past. As Comrade Einstein reminded us, doing something over and over again and expecting a different outcome is the definition of insanity.
When you were doing it back in the 70s and maybe in the 80s, there was maybe some kind of a hope that it could be done.
Yeah, there were progressive Democrats. Dennis Kucinich was a congressperson who ran for president. There was Mike Gravel.
The thing about it is that you have the squad, and I try to be open-minded about the squad, and not only have they have failed us in terms of fighting for healthcare and busting a rail strike, but they vote to give money to indirectly, just like we're indirectly, America's indirectly giving money to terrorists with in regard to Yemen with our money that we get to Saudi Arabia.
And we're allied with Al Qaeda and ISIS and the most disturbing bunches of people in the world in Syria, where the United States is hanging on to 1/3 of Syrian territory and stealing its oil.
And I do admit that he's not an angel, but I do admit that I want in Syria, I want Assad to win in that outcome. Because if Assad doesn't win in that outcome, I mean, look who takes over: ISIS, the fundamentalists, or something like that. That's not. And Assad is no angel, but he protects Christians, he protects Jews, he protects Muslims, he protects them all.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would support Rojava, which would be the Kurdish forces, because there are many women involved in that, strongly feminist.
If I had been younger when Rojava came along, I would have gone to fight there. Yeah, but I was too old to be any kind of soldier by the time it materialized. But I knew how I could get to Syria.
But it's just kind of like the way the American foreign policy goes. If it doesn't make any sense, that's what they do. I mean, look what Hillary Clinton did over there in Libya. I mean, Gaddafi. I never thought I'd say anything nice about Gaddafi, but Gaddafi, he actually had one of the most stable, prosperous countries on the African continent. It had universal health care, had universal basic income. It provided for the people because it was an oil-rich country. And he moderated. He moderated before too long. And he was actually friendly with the West, but that was still not good enough. They brought down his government, and now slavery is back in Libya. They have this slavery has been brought back in Libya.
Yeah, for
Right.
Hillary to say we came, we saw, he died was just sick. I mean, we know how the man died, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Nobody deserves that.
No,
Right.
and he was no angel, but I mean, he was no saint by any stretch of the imagination. But
I don't. Even if he was one of the most evil men who ever lived, he didn't deserve a bayonet in his rectum.
No, I think that the United Nations, I think praiseworthily, has set a standard of the abolition of the death penalty worldwide, including for war crimes and genocide trials. And that's true of the special UN tribunals. It's also true of the International Criminal Court. They exclude the death penalty. And I think that's a small part of the progress that humanity has made. And we ought to be supporting that. But I think the irony is of the whole thing with Libya in 2011, it sent a message, hey, folks, if you're smaller countries, you need to get nuclear weapons to have a credible deterrent against our doing the same thing in your country. It's promoting nuclear proliferation, I think.
Yeah, Gaddafi gave up his weapons of mass destruction, and look what happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, and it just very unfortunate. I mean, George W. Bush, again, as I said, one of the worst presidents we ever had. The State Department lifted Libya and Syria off the list of terrorist states while he was president.
Mhm.
One of the few good things he did.
Yeah, even his thought clock's right twice a day.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's painful to give George W. Bush any credit for anything.
yeah, the guy's a war criminal.
Yeah.
He ought to be
He should
sitting
be
in a cell in The Hague awaiting trial for crimes against humanity and war crimes.
Yeah. He
Every
should be in
president,
prison.
every living American president ought to be sitting in the next cell.
Pretty much, yeah. Noam Chomsky said that. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that Noam and I are on the same page.
Yeah.
And David McReynolds also, he figured out what would be a just sentence for LBJ versus the number of Vietnamese he killed. How many seconds or minutes do you want to sentence him to prison for each Vietnamese? Because that was in We Are Being Invaded by the 21st Century.
Very good book, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, David.
I miss David terribly.
Yeah, David. Yeah, I wonder I just wonder where he had been in Washington this past weekend.
If he had the health to do it, of course he would.
Yeah, he would have probably been there with a cane. Been there.
Yeah.
I know he was walking with a cane before he died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would get frustrated with him, and I would say to him, David, do you know that you are David effing McReynolds? You're more well-known than the organizations that you're a part of. I said, yeah, but I'm really old. Okay, well, nothing you can do about that, I guess.
I remember, I tell you a story about him real quick, and I will get back to it. He used, I was a smoker back then, and he'll see me with a cigarette in my hand, and he'll be like, when when you use tobacco products, you're indirectly helping the bank account of people like Jesse Helms. So I'm not saying you can do what you want, but maybe you should quit the habit. I suggest you smoke marijuana instead.
Which
he didn't call it pot; he called it marijuana.
David was such a wonderfully idiosyncratic human being, but God, I loved him.
Yeah, he died a beatnik. He
Yes,
was
he
a
did.
beatnik in the 50s, and he died in 2018 as a beatnik at
Right
the
next
age
to
of
his
80.
cat.
At the age of 88, he was an 88-year-old beatnik.
hmm And
Yep.
Gandalf lay there right beside. Um, we don't call them owners anymore. What do we call them? Protectors or whatever. But there's David. There was his cat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny. He never called himself. He never even called himself. He never called himself gay. He called himself. He used the proper term, the terminology. He referred to himself as a homosexual. Yeah, I mean, it was like he was so cavalier about it and everything. It was just kind of like, yeah, he called it by its proper name. I mean, he was thinking in a 1950s mindset, so that was always kind of interesting in conversations with him.
The longest conversation I had with David, we were both at the last convention of Mobilization for Survival. The organization was tearing itself apart over allowing a group that was pro-life into the organization, even though they said that within the organization, all they would do would be anti-war stuff. But they would still do pro-life stuff on their own time. Well, accept them or don't accept them, I don't care. That wasn't a particularly good reason for an organization with over 1,000 affiliates to just go tits up. But that's what it did. And David looked at the literature table, and we had stuff from the SP, NAM, and DSOC, and he said, "I like this. You at least have merged the literature."
Wow. Yeah, that's the thing right there. I mean, organizations and movements getting nitpicky again over whatever issues. And I'm going to repeat this over and over again. It's been nearly 5 years since I had a unionized job. I belonged to a unionized job for 20 years. The United Food Commercial Workers Local 204. I won't mention the name of the company I work for because I'm angry with them. And the company that I work for currently is a subsidiary, and I don't want to get in trouble. So and they're not union. So so I would just say this much. I belong to the USCW Local 204 for the past 20 years. From 1998 to 2018. I didn't give a rip if somebody was in a union. And when I was a shop steward trying to get people to join the union, I didn't ask them what their position was on single payer health care or what their position was on the various issues that was dear to me. And did they ever vote for Jesse Helms in the past? Because I lived in North Carolina. I'm not going to go and ask them these silly questions. I want them to pay their union dues. So their wages can go up, my wages can go up, their health care benefits can improve, my health care benefits can improve, their vacation times could get longer, my vacation times can get longer, their pensions could get more generous, my pensions can get generous. And I'm not going to care what their politics is as far as their personal well-being is concerned, because with their well-being means my well-being. And and same thing with this broader anti-war movement. The well-being of humanity is at stake. So again, if you're a Proud Boy, I mean, may not like the fact you're a Proud Boy out there, but you know what? If you're a Proud Boy or you're some militia creep or what have you, you don't want nuclear war. Hey, that's incredibly base. We're on the same side. But you got to a point where people you can't even have a conversation. You can't even be friends with somebody that has a disagreement.
Yeah. But when do we say, I'm working on an essay right now called A Coalition Too Far. We've all got somebody we wouldn't solidarize with, and even to save the planet, because that person is engaged right now in violence against a minority. I'm never going to be on the same platform with David Duke.
Same here.
That's never, ever going to happen. I don't like Nazis in the Ukraine, and I don't like Nazis in America. There are people I would never be on the same platform as Louis Farrakhan. The guy's a hater. He may well have contributed to the death of Malcolm X. I don't want any part of him.
Mm-hmm.
But so where do we draw the line? Where do we say, okay, here we can work with these people, we can't work with those people? And I don't have an answer. The essay is not going to provide an answer. It's just going to raise the question.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, just, I'm not, we're not going to speak of the controversy, but there was somebody at CPI and that spoke, and people were having a hissy fit, and he didn't speak at the event itself, but he ended up speaking at CPI, and I'm glad he did, and and people would have listened to him 20 years ago, we would have 1 million people alive in Iraq today, and tens of thousands of Americans alive and not with missing limbs in this country, and we will probably have $10 trillion in our pockets, which wouldn't last very long because they'd be giving it away to Nazis in the Ukraine. So
yeah,
there you go.
I did listen to him back before the Second Gulf War. As a matter of fact, my wife and I traveled to Pittsburgh to hear him speak. We came out of that building headed for a reception/party afterwards. There was a lynch mob, an absolute frigging lynch mob. And some of them were crazy enough to put their hands on our friend. I mean, the guy's only 6'5", 300 pounds. I mean,
yeah, I would not want to make him mad.
I wouldn't want to make him mad either.
Yeah.
Well, besides that, he's a nice guy. I don't want to lose his friend.
Oh, he was a very nice guy. He was a very nice guy, but I was like, I wouldn't want to upset him.
No, he was on Bill O'Reilly's show talking about the fact that there were no weapons of mass destruction. And O'Reilly had this habit of leaning in on his guests because he's a very tall man. And he would lean forward on his guests. And he does this with the person we're talking about. And probably by now everybody has figured out who it is. And the guy was a Marine officer. He knows how to lean in on people. And Riley starts back up. And pretty soon, if he'd gone back a whole lot further, he'd have been out of the shot.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I'm a pacifist, but my whole life I've been surrounded by Marines, including my buddy in the chat right now, this is going to be an interesting chat. I hope I can read this after we're done.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we'll be commenting on the chat lines and all of that as soon as
keep going, Jason. Keep giving it to them.
Yeah, we'll keep we'll chat with some of these folks a little more at length as we draw to a close in a little while. Let me go ahead and do my little blurb for everybody here. Kabura's News Group, KRTD, has a chat line set up. Super chat set up. So if as I said, if anybody here could give, whenever you can give, much would be appreciated. And we will continue here. So anything else to add to this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My occasional column is called "This is like deja vu all over again." It's a Yogi Berra quote.
Yeah.
Because I feel that's exactly what it is. When helicopters are rescuing people from the top of the embassy, and people have the unmitigated gall to say, "This isn't like Saigon in 1975." Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I was an adult by that time. Pull people off the roof of the embassy as you evacuate. That's pretty much just exactly like Saigon in 1975. And the Vietnam War made people crazy. People lost their minds. You had construction workers running through the streets of Manhattan, beating up any long-haired male they came in contact with, or any woman wearing sort of funky clothing. A hard hat riot. And there was Margot didn't know this group existed. This came out of the group that she left and I joined in 72. there was actually a group called Socialists for Nixon. God bless us and save us. Socialists for Nixon. And it's happening again. There are people on the left who have simply lost their minds. No, you can't be a socialist and support Wall Street and the Pentagon.
No, you can't.
That doesn't work.
No, you can't. But somehow they found a way for it to work. I was watching Revolutionary Blackout Network the other day, and they were having a good discussion about it, and there was like, it seems like when it comes to the class issue, if you disagree on if you disagree on a social issue, you're canceled. But if you kind of walk away from, let's say Medicare for all or something like that, they'll forgive you. I mean, like, look what they did with AOC and company with regard to the rail strike. And I agree with Shama Sawant of Seattle, the Seattle councilwoman, Workers Strike Back, that that the squad minus what's the congresswoman from Detroit? What's her name?
Talib.
Rashida Tlaib. Minus Rashida Tlaib, the squad should be expelled from DSA because Rashida Tlaib did vote with the rail workers.
Yeah. There was a time when DSA would have done that. They would have said to somebody, "No, you can't be a member of our organization and not support the working class." I mean, it's kind of socialism 101.
Yeah, you don't do that to rail workers. Or
any worker.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, just you imagine Eugene Debs was alive today and he saw the squad doing this nonsense.
Even during his lifetime, while he was going to jail, and Victor Berger was being denied his seat in Congress, Meyer London was supporting World War I. He was elected on the socialist ticket.
I did not know he supported World War One. Meyer London.
Did.
Okay.
How he could do that while his comrades were being thrown into dungeons is just beyond me.
I know that the 1916 candidate A.L. Benson did support World War One, but I did not know that about Meyer London.
That's why he didn't lose his seat in the same way that Berger lost his.
Yeah, I didn't he have to go to the Supreme Court to make sure he was seated in Congress?
Yes.
Yeah.
They had to elect him 3 times in order to get him a seat.
And there were state legislatures that refused to seat socialist members of Congress in New York in the 1920s for the same reason, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So
all over the country, they passed. Pennsylvania used to have what was called the subversives law. You had to go to a notary or a magistrate or somebody like that and swear you weren't a subversive if you were elected to office. When I was the minor functionary in Richland Township, I had to go to the magistrate. Well, I'm not a subversive. And he's saying, yes, you are. If I ever met a subversive, you're one.
Yeah.
But I'll sign this document anyway. Yeah, of course, everybody knows I'm a subversive.
Well, we could use some subversives if considering the clowns that run this country,
Exactly.
I mean, they're the subversive ones, maybe the people that need to challenge the powers that be are not the ones who are subversive. They're the ones that wanting to repair what's wrong with our society.
What was the President of the United States doing on President's Day in Kyiv?
Very good question.
Why wasn't he in the United States?
Why wasn't he
President's Day
in Ohio?
Yeah. Did Buttigieg show up yesterday or today?
He finally did show up after some public pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. He finally showed up after a little bit of public pressure. Again, there's no relief for the people in Ohio or the breadbasket of America for what they're going through. And that's you imagine that's going to do to agriculture in this country. We're probably not going to starve, but we're probably going to have a food crisis. We're going to have an inflation. We're going to have inflation. Bread's probably going to be $6 a loaf, or $8 a loaf before too long.
The 2 loaves that I bought today were $6, and the eggs were better than $1 a piece.
Of course, I don't buy loaf bread. I'm kind of stuck up when it comes to bread. I buy I buy little brioche bread, little artisan rolls. I'm kind of like that. So
I buy the fresh baked bread. I like raisin bread and whole grain bread and things like that. No, it probably would have been cheaper if I'd picked up something off the bread rack, but I can't get that down.
I can't do loaf bread. I just can't. I'm just so beyond loaf bread. It's just the only thing I could do with loaf bread, I could French toast. That I can do. That's about the only thing. If I make French toast, that's about the only thing I could do with loaf bread. But anyway, all that aside,
our comrade Jason is thanking all three of us for the conversation. Hey, thank you for keeping the chat rolling.
Oh yeah, and I noticed that too, and as I said, we'll be chatting with the good folks, even the ones that disagree with us on the chat line.
So you're saying we're going to chat with both the people who are correct and the people who aren't?
Well, as long as everybody's nice, people, this is free and open discussion, and people are entitled to their views because we are a free speech platform here on the Willy Bragg Show and at KRTD Media. So,
right, but I'm ready to have a civil conversation even with Richard Spencer. I think my feeling is I think the Antifa was practices self-defense. They have a right to do that. But I don't think punching someone because you disagree with what they say is self-defense. I think it's a horrible precedent for building a better socialist democratic society. And I look at where it goes. And I mean, I think Richard Spencer should would go into reclusion for 6 months because he doesn't have an audience, not because of the threat of violence.
Richard Spencer is supportive of Ukraine, by the way.
I guess it's birds of a feather.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's true. Nick Fuentes supports Russia, but Richard Spencer supports Ukraine.
Right. Oh, by the way, I should just mention this maybe early that a technical difficulty may compare. I may want to grab a power cord just to be sure that my device here doesn't have its battery run out. Because if I just get a power cord, I'll just plug it in, and that'll be the solution to that. I can take a break whenever it would be a good time for you.
Oh no, if you need to walk away for a second to get a power cord, that's fine.
Okay, and I guess the mic control just mutes the mic, right?
What's that now?
The mic control here at the bottom, I can just mute it while I'm away. Is that correct?
Yeah, that'll be fine, and then just come back whenever you can. So that's not a problem. Okay, no problem.
Thank you. I'll just take my break now. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. That'll be fine.
This is the longest conversation the three of us have ever had.
Yeah, I think so too. And we had some private phone conversations before and everything. But so yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show, Willie.
Huh?
I said thank you for the opportunity to be on your show.
Oh, absolutely. It just popped up in my mind last night on our phone conversation. I figure that there'll be a lot to add to the discussion. Actually, probably while we're doing that, I could go ahead and show this real quick for everybody to see. Let me find it. Let's see if I can actually find that video. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. This is from a few days ago. Somebody saw me from the event, and so I'll play it real quick. And sometimes it repeats on the Twitter. So here we go. Oh, it didn't show. I'm sorry.
No more war.
Okay, let me do that again. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
There I am.
No more war.
Yeah. So there you go. Yep.
You were just there with 300 or 400 of your closest friends and dearest comrades.
Yeah, I think I think that was in front of the. If I'm not mistaken, I think that one was taken in front of the White House. Let me take a look at that again. Yep, that's what's taken in front of the White House.
No more war.
Yeah, so that was taken in front of the White House. So and let me go ahead and we'll go ahead and put that back. So anyway, yeah, there I am. So and as I said, we went to the CPI event right after that. There was a CPI event, and and I met a couple of people out there. I met Scott Ritter. I met Pasta Jardula from the couch. I'm trying to think, who else did I meet out there? I didn't meet Caleb Lompin, but I saw him speak. Yeah, probably should play you think I should play the speech by Ritter?
Yes, I think it's the most rousing speech I've heard on the Ukraine crisis.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me go ahead and find that real quick. I'm sure. Yeah. It just occurred to me that I should be playing that. Let's see.
Finally, Scott is treated like the American hero he is.
Yeah, as I said, I just wish people would have listened to him back 20 years ago.
They only didn't want to listen to him; they wanted to lynch him.
Yeah,
anybody who believed what he said.
Yeah,
America's always right.
Yeah, I mean, I would
wrong.
Absolutely. So let me get this set up over here. All right, on the StreamYards. Let's see. All right, let me do that right there. And I almost forgot, and we almost had an echo, and that would not have been good. Okay. All right. Let me see. Okay, we'll set everything up over here. Yep, right there it is. Okay, and I will go ahead and let me see. Let me go right here it is. All right, here we go.
Go ahead and give us your word.
Thank you very much. To be honest, I thought I was just coming here to a reception to say hi to people, and speaking is hopefully it's a bonus. Listening. First of all, thank you.
Oh, that's all there is to it. I'm sorry.
You want to share it some other time. I sent you the video with the URL.
Sorry about that. That was a real short one. I thought that was a little bit longer than that. Actually, I'll tell you what. Let's see. Oh, I'll tell you what. I'll play. Let's see here. Hold on a second here. All right. Actually, I'll play you some of the people that were participants at the event from where I was at, and yeah, let's go ahead and do that. and that'll be just a real quick second here, and then we'll
I'm
get
ready
back.
to earn my BSN, but in new school that understands the nurse's schedule. WTU gets me accredited online programs.
No,
set login times.
don't do that. Don't do that. Let's see. I hate it when it does that crap. Okay, give me a second. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, let's see. I had an ad blocker that expired, so that explains that. So okay, so here we go. I'll go ahead and play this real quick. Let me go ahead and we'll set this up, and this is from the last week. Yeah, right there it is. No echo. All right, let's see. And this is from the KRTD event.
I've got to be careful with the song. I got to be super, super careful with the song. But that was really good. What do you guys think about the Roger Waters speech? I got to be careful with the music. So, you think it was a good speech? Yeah. Thanks for the time. You're going to go look. Cool. All right, let's get back to it.
Thank you so much. Now we march.
This is where we march toward the White House.
Line up over here. It's going to be starting there. It's going to be going along this side of the reflecting pool to 17th Street up to Pennsylvania Avenue. See you guys on the march.
I actually read where someone said, "Why is Waters speaking
It was okay.
international affairs?"
Great stuff.
Yeah.
What do rockers have to say about that?
It was good. You guys liked it. All right, we got to find another channel. Maybe we got some people already on the ground, like I said earlier. So some of our team members here at KOTD are actually there in the audience. They were saving a lot of their phone battery for when.
Oh, Catty Ann, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
Oh, I said people were criticizing Roger Waters for having an opinion on what's going on in domestic and foreign relations. And why should he have that? I don't know. I lived through the 60s where just about every musician had a very strong opinion.
Actually, Jimi Hendrix didn't have a strong opinion on the Vietnam War, strangely enough.
That's his problem.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked to find out about that. But this is Jimmy Sutherland from KRTD covered the event from on Sunday, and I was on the grounds with Shane and Sherry out there. So you'll be seeing us.
Started and some interviews for later.
Yeah. Hold on, we'll try to
you wish
find.
you were there. You love it. Okay, Roger Waters, good. So what I'm gonna do is see who is out there and what.
Or just put that on the ground and just hold this like.
Let's see. Looks like Savvy Sabs is still out there. Oh, we got one team member out here doing something in the backstage. Yeah, whoever Douglas Boone is on that stream marched to the clown house. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, it's okay.
There's Shane.
Oh.
I got 59.
What is going on, Shane?
I got this one.
What is that? Shane is out there, out in the streets. So. Real call to action. I agree. Thank you, James. What? I knew their internet's going to be so iffy. So they don't have their mic on. Okay.
Margo, Jason just welcomed you back.
Hey,
Hi.
am I connected now?
Yeah, it's just glitchy a little bit.
Hello? Yeah, the connection is kind of suckish. So we're getting ready to march over
Right.
to the White House.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, put it.
Oh no. Man, the audio's gotta suck out there right now. For everybody.
The audio eventually did
Hold
work.
on, I'm gonna mute you really quick. I'm gonna put Sabby on. She is interviewing Jill Stein right now.
And it really drove home to me how people's politics is fluid. You know, Trump supporters become Bernie Sanders supporters, and Sanders supporters become Trump supporters. And so much is responding to this terrible, circumstances around us. But what doesn't change is the one versus the rest of us. And today was sort of like proof of principle that we need to not let their game divide us and conquer us, and we need to be all about the power that we have and the power of the people to create a world that works for all of us.
Awesome. Jill, thank you so much.
Thank you, Savvy. Thank you for being here.
Alrighty. All right, guys. So we are going to head to the White House. It looks like people are already starting to march over there.
They sure are. People are already.
Two mighty women right there.
All right. I don't want to get any of their backstage stuff. How you doing over there, Shane?
Is my connection good now?
Yeah, actually, it's great. Put it in landscape mode, though. There you go.
How's it now?
That's good.
So we're marching over to the White House. It's a long 20-minute journey.
So what did you guys think of the speech? How was it? How was all the speeches? We'll start with you, then we'll go to Sherry, and then we'll go to Willie.
So the speeches were really good. Even the people I don't necessarily care for, we'll say, made really good speeches. So, everybody made great speeches, and it was a great event.
Did you get to talk to anyone there so far?
So, yes, I have a pre-recorded interview with Jill Stein. I asked her 3 questions, and we're going to try to release that later if we can fix the audio. The audio is awful.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of back-end, because we had the background of the event going on in there. So we'll try to fix that for you guys and get you an interview with Jill Stein.
Okay. That's fine. Jackson Eagle was my favorite. All right, so you got Willie there with you at all? Or Sherry?
Where's Will? What happened to Willie?
You lost the team.
Oh, there's Sherry. Jimmy wants to talk.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hey, how was it? What do you think?
It was great. It was a lot of fun. And it was great speakers. Really good speakers. Really great lineup. Some of my favorites. And of course, Jimmy was nice and very funny. So that was nice.
Yeah, I noticed that. It sounded like he wrote some new stuff. Pretty great.
But one thing we need to learn to do is sing along with the singers. They had Nellie singing the one song from the Vietnam War. 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? And I was hoping people would sing along. They didn't. But
no,
we're just getting started.
That's right. That's right. So, anything that stood out to you in any of the messages?
Well, let's see. Not in particular, because it was a lot of the same kind of people that I like to listen to. So it was just more a lot of inspirational talk, and it was just really nice seeing different groups of people here. So it's nice that there's people with communist flags, and then there's people that are libertarians.
And so it's a wide range of people. So and I hopefully we're going to, be able to keep going with this and really push it. So,
Right.
and so it was a lot of fun. It was
Good.
it was inspiring.
Cool.
So
that's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed
let
it.
me see if I can find Willie for you.
Back there.
Okay. There you go.
Willie, Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy. Oh,
Hey.
Hey, Jimmy. How are you?
I'm good. How'd you like the speeches?
I love the speeches. And yeah, I love speeches. I met some pretty neat people today. I had to go and I had trouble with my StreamYards, but I got some neat material on my Facebook live stream. I guess I can share it with y'all and hopefully some interviews to follow in the next week or two.
Awesome. So anything that stood out from you from any of the speeches?
Just the diversity. There was more diversity than I thought it was going to be. It was more than just libertarian on the left, but it was. I was telling a friend of mine on the phone how many ideologies there were out here today. I'm like, and naming them all, I was just like everyone from January 6th insurrectionists to tankies, and so I'm like, that's diversity.
Right.
But but as I said, and I met some neat people here today, and all that, and I was glad to make it here.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet. I wish I could be there. That's totally awesome.
Yeah. So, and sorry. Yeah. Anyway, hopefully the madness for World War III will not take place.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Any speakers that stood out that you enjoyed the most?
Well, obviously Jimmy Dore stood out. Max Blumenthal. I'm trying to think. She's got a little more conservative on some social issues, but I still think that Tulsi Gabbard gave a great speech today, especially about the military-industrial complex and some of the abuses in foreign policy. So in that regard, she was still she's still saying valid things that needs to be addressed.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah.
What did you think about the need for a call to action at the end? Getting involved in politics, maybe doing a sit out, going to your Congress's office, things like that. What did you think of that?
We need more direct action because they're not listening to us. I mean, they're not listening to us, and I've seen like with where people like in the last year and a half, people going screaming at George W. Bush, he deserves it. People screaming at Mike Pompeo, he deserves it. Even people screaming at AOC, she deserves it. I mean, they all deserve to be yelled at because they're not listening to us.
Right.
None of them.
I agree.
And that's pretty much across the political spectrum right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and none of those people from both parties are our friends. And the more the American people realize this, the better it can be, and not allow Americans to be divided with these pointless culture wars and sound bites that they get from the mainstream media, whether it's CNN or Fox News.
I agree.
Yeah,
that's why today was so necessary.
Yeah. And again, I don't have to agree with every single person that spoke at the event. I mean, as far as their ideology is concerned, but I mean, and I'm not going to sit there with a pencil and pad and ask people what their position is on Medicare for all and or whether they think that trans women should be in sports or not, what have you. I mean, or quote unquote how woke they are, or how right wing they are. I know where I stand on the issues, and if we have a nuclear war, all these issues are going to be irrelevant.
Right? Absolutely. I completely agree
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah, humanity's on the brink.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yep. Well, thanks for getting on here. Let's can you guys like maybe show across the crowd that's there? I know people want to see what the crowd looks
I'll
like.
be glad to. I'll be glad to. Here we go.
Here, let me make myself smaller.
Okay, hold on. There. And you know what's really funny, Jimmy? I've been getting some criticisms from people who are on my side of the fence, our side of the fence, about certain voices at this march, and I'm not paying any mind to these people that lectures me about that.
Right. No, I completely agree. That's crazy.
I'm just not going to. I'm tired of this mindset. If you don't believe in A, B, C, and D, whatever. And the other side does that too. And that's another thing that people think it's just one side that's doing this. I think that this kind of shenanigans happens across the political spectrum.
Yes, absolutely. It sure does.
And I'm glad that Julian Assange was emphasized today too. So that always needs to be emphasized for freedom of the press and things of that nature, free speech and all.
Yep, I agree. That was a really good little addition to it.
And here's Matthias Benjamin. Hi there.
Hi.
Yeah. Matthias Benjamin actually showed up.
I didn't see that. No, your hand was like right in front of the camera.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I was trying to get it so they. Anyway,
you're good. You're good.
Kind of awkward, the crowd and all that. Sorry.
I know it. It's tough.
Okay. But anyway, I guess I'll let it back to Shane and everything. So
you got it. Shane? Thank you so much.
And like a few minutes later, we were in front of the White House. And hold on a second. Let me do this real quick. All right. There we go.
How close did they let you get to the White House?
Huh?
How close did they let you get to the White House?
Oh, well, we were on the street. We were on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We were directly in front of the White House.
Okay.
So, and we had we had cameras out there, and people they had some speeches and all of that. So sorry for the long segment, but I figure get a little bit of segment of my associates, my co-workers at Cabarrus News Group, Sean Coughlin and Shane Coughlin and Sherry Weiss, Dr. Sherry Weiss. They were there at the grounds with me, and Jimmy Sutherland's, who was hosting from San Bernardino, California, and she's going to be on the air tonight at midnight with Warren on a show called The Secret Show. So I highly recommend y'all are up at midnight Eastern Standard Time to watch The Secret Show. They're an entertaining team, Jimmy and Warren. They're a very entertaining team together. So and they do that every Saturday night at midnight, huh?
I've got church in the morning.
Oh, okay. No
I've
problem.
decided to take Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the minister who was murdered in the death camps by Nazis. He said we should pray as if everything depended upon God and work as if everything depended upon us.
Yeah. So, and I'm hoping that, as I said, I'm hoping in the next 2 years that there will be this shenanigans. I'm hoping it'll be over soon. I'm hoping for the best. I mean, that's all we can hope for. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I'm thinking that when I retire, if I move to the western part of the state, I think I'm probably going to invest in instead of building a house. I think I'm going to just buy a bomb shelter. I think that maybe people ought to start thinking about building a bomb shelter instead of an actual house.
Oh, back in the 60s, they had these plans for bomb shelters that you put in your basement.
Mm-hmm.
How this thing would protect you is beyond me. There were like just 2x4s over the roof Yeah, when your house collapses on you, that'll save you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm surprised that that people lost interest in this as the decades went on. I mean, yeah, I'm just surprised that they just stopped building. I mean, and if I ever run for office, one thing I might run on to solve the housing problems is building bomb shelters and to for everybody in the country.
Yeah, the Chinese have.
Oh, hey, if they can do it with their population, we can.
They can't put all their population into a bomb shelter, but they think they could save about a third of their people.
When I was at the university, this 30 some years ago, at the Joyner Library, there was the Cold War was over, but at the East Stacks, there was a little ramp down and had a fallout shelter. It was a holdover from the Cold War, and I will pass by there, and I would just think it was so charming, something antiquated from the past. And then a few years later, they gutted out that area and I like gutted out that middle area of the stacks, and they built this little pathway with these columns and where you walk through, and it has these little chimes and everything. And I'm thinking, my God, why do y'all get rid of that fallout shelter? You never know what that could come in handy again. I mean, it was just ridiculous that they got rid of it. I mean, and for historical reasons, they should have kept the bomb shelter there.
I don't know when
there was a book back in 19.
I'm sorry, Margo, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I gotta say there was a book back in 1982, around the time of the Great March that we were talking about, which you were part of, Catayana, in New York, where you had 1 million people turned out. That was June 12th, 1982. That was a special session that the UN had on disarmament. And there was a book by the Ground Zero Committee. It was called Nuclear War, What's in It for You?
I remember that.
I remember people just, I remember I was telling people last year, younger folks, I was telling Generation Z and some of the younger millennials, and that I'm like, I had memories resurfaced that I almost forgot about.
Yeah, I don't know if this was true when you were coming of age, Willie, but when Margo and I were coming of age, the films like Failsafe, On the Beach, were playing on late night movie. There was a late night movie on television.
The day after, I remember when that came out in 1983.
Yeah,
that's right. Right, and that was prophetic, because really one of the most dangerous times came a few months after that movie was released. It was around November of 1983 that what happened was they had an exercise which was called, I guess, Able Archer in NATO, familiar name. I've heard it could stand for Nazi Allied Terrorist Organization. And I guess that the episode with Nord Stream confirmed the terrorist part.
Wow.
It is a Nazi Allied terrorist occupation. If you don't believe me, ask the Syrians.
Yeah. So, well, as I said, it just repeating, with the repeated history. The only thing I want to repeat is that there was no actual nuclear war to take place. I hope that that's the part of history that will repeat, that nuclear war actually didn't ever take place. That part I want to repeat. I want to keep living.
Yes. I think we want to follow that precedent.
Yes.
And I think the thing that concerns me, if you take a sampling of what's on YouTube, that there's this whole mythology that the USA is the only superpower in the world. Nobody said that during the first Cold War. It was recognized there was a balance of terror. That was a phrase that was used a lot, balance of terror.
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that there is the idea of mutually assured destruction. If that there is something in the back of their minds on all sides that, hey, if I do this, they're going to do this, and this is the end. So maybe cooler heads should prevail. So I'm hoping. So, and
I am too, and I hope Scott is right that we go do another million-person march
yeah,
in next year. Tell the
yes,
politicians we're not going to put up with this. You
yeah.
cannot take
Well,
huge amounts of money and spend it on weapons and bankrolling every tin pot dictator in the world, and leave us without medical care, without housing, without a basic income, etc.
exactly. We're getting close to the end here, so let's go and talk to some of these people on the chat line, and then
Yes.
we'll make it real quick because it'll be time to close up shop for the night. And I do appreciate you both for showing up here. It's been a very good discussion.
I got it.
Oh my God, y'all have contributed to this program far way better than oh, this is a long chat line here. Oh
That's what I was telling you.
yeah. So let's see. With Jason, I said with Jason's Hop said, looking forward to tonight's conversation. Snipe Hunter says hi everyone. Hello, and hello back. Let's see. Yep. Hello. Oops. Okay. And what I'm going to do for the sake of time, I'm going to scroll down a little bit and anything that catches the eye, I will emphasize. Let's see here.
Willie, can I address something that appeared in chat?
Yeah, please do.
Someone asked how long Jimi Hendrix was in the Army and what was his deployment. He was only in the Army for a year. I don't know why he was discharged, but that certainly wouldn't have been long enough to be airborne.
Yeah. Anti-war organizations are uniting in a weekend action anchored by demonstrations outside the White House. Say no to endless war. Saturday, 1 p.m. Washington, D.C. at the White House. Absolutely. We need critical thinking. Yes.
And we will be repeating all that information in International Women's Day on March 8th.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, see here. All right. Let's see here. I'm gonna and I usually try to respond to everybody, but the chat lines is a little longer than it needed to be. So and so to everybody, I'm going to go and apologize for not addressing. I do apologize because this is a 2-hour program and we're running short on time. So as I said, I do apologize. I don't mean to do this to everybody because I normally talk to everybody at the end. So let's go ahead and conclude to say thank you. Thank you, Catty Ann. Thank you, Margot, for showing up tonight. And I appreciate this. I hope you both will come back on this show. Catty Ann, I know you're no stranger to this program. So yeah, this is the 3rd time you've been up here. So
yeah, I'm a publicity hound. I want more than my 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, there you go. And so anyway, wanted to say to everyone here to hit the like button. Helps with algorithms, especially on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button on the Willie Bragg Show and on the KRTD YouTube channel. Subscribe and follow us on Twitch, on Facebook, Twitter, all the platforms. Just go ahead and do that.
Is there a Patreon to contribute to, Willie?
Huh?
Is there a Patreon? Or
I don't know. There is a Patreon set up here. You know what? I don't know. I should know the answer to that. Bad Willies. I don't know. I know we had. Yes, but anyway, to everyone here, to say that to leave a comment. Also, leave a comment. Feel free to share the content. And remember to encourage each and every one of you to go ahead and create your own platform and utilize it, because we are the muckrakers of our time. I say this in the name of free speech absolutism. And to always reject corporate media, always seek a second opinion, seek 22 opinions if necessary, because the corporate media is not going to give us the information that we need. They can't even predict the weather correctly half the time. So there you go. So until next time, everybody, I will let everybody go. And if you both could stay over here before signing off, I'll chat with y'all for a quick minute. And I will be signing off, telling everybody, see you all next week.